In Tenet, in order to understand what is going on during the battle scene in STALSK 12, it is easiest to go through the events in the forward direction from the point of view of the forward-moving red team and then go back through the events from the point of view of the inverted blue team. Let's start with the red team briefing where Ives explains the mission. The goal is to lift the algorithm from the bottom of the hypercenter before a bomb goes off that will seal the algorithm in for the future to pick up and destroy the world as we know it. While battle rages, a splinter unit, which consists of only Ives and the protagonist, will enter the hypercenter to steal the algorithm. The red team are dropped onto the battlefield, and at the same time, the inverted blue team, who have already experienced the battle, are being airlifted out. We can see that many of the inverted blue team are injured and are having to be helped into the shipping containers. We see this backwards as we are experiencing the events in the forward flow of time. As the battle kicks off, the red team sees explosions and ammunitions moving in both the forward direction of time and the backwards direction of time. The reason they are seeing some of these things moving backwards is because these are explosions and ammunition fired by both the inverted blue team and by inverted status men. So from the forward moving red team's perspective, these things are happening in reverse. During the battle, the protagonist spots a helicopter, and we will revisit this later. The protagonist and Ives make their way to the entrance of the hypercenter, and in order not to be spotted, they cause a distraction by blowing up a building. This building is actually blown up twice, once by the forward-moving red team and once by the inverted blue team, and they do so at exactly the same moment in time in opposite directions. So from the red team's perspective, the building was damaged at the bottom. This is a consequence of the inverted blue team's actions when they fired at the bottom of the building. But as time flows forward and the effect of the blue team's actions are reversed, the red team sees the building heal from the bottom upwards, and once it rises and is intact once again, the red team destroys it from the top. After this, the protagonist and Ives run into the hypercenter and fail to notice a car honking to try and stop them. Once in, they set off a tripwire and the hypercenter entrance is sealed up, trapping them inside, but as there's nothing else for it, the pair barrel on. They encounter a locked door that stops them from going any further. They also find the body of a dead soldier with a blue armband on the other side of the locked door. Volkov appears with the algorithm and Seta calls the protagonist and taunts him as the end of the world nears. Seta ends a call by instructing Volkov to shoot the protagonist, and just as he's about to, the dead soldier comes alive, stands up, and takes the bullet. The soldier is inverted, so after the bullet leaves Volkov's gun and hits the soldier, it immediately reverses backwards and re-enters Volkov's gun. The soldier then opens the door for the protagonist and Ives to enter, and they wrestle the algorithm away from Volkov. Finally, the mysterious soldier runs away backwards from the scene. The protagonist and Ives still don't have a way out before the bomb explodes, when suddenly 2 ropes land at their feet, and without asking any questions, they grab them, and just as the explosion occurs, they are lifted out to safety. They discover then that it's Neil who has rescued them. Neil was originally part of the inverted blue team, so let's follow his and the blue team's journey to discover what actually happened from their perspective. The blue team land on the battlefield just as the bomb is going off. They work their way backwards through the events, and this time it is they who see the red team exiting the battlefield. But of course, from their perspective, the red team are moving backwards and re-entering the battlefield. Midway through the battle, they fire at the building that the red team also fired at. From the blue team's perspective, the building, which was damaged at the top from the red team, now heals at the top as the events run backwards, and once that is complete, the blue team fire at the bottom of the building and it collapses once again. Neil then spots Volkov, who is moving in the forward direction, booby-trap the entrance of the hypercenter. He then sees Volkov taken away in the helicopter that the protagonist also spotted earlier. Neil knows that this means that the protagonist and Ives will get trapped in the hypercenter, and in an effort to save them, he makes his way to the turnstile at the center of the battlefield so he can revert and move forwards with the protagonist and Ives. Once reverted, Neil finds a car and races over to the protagonist and Ives just as they are entering the hypercenter, and honks at them to try and get them to stop. This is a car horn we heard earlier when we went through the events in the forward timeline. Neil then finds another way to rescue the protagonist and Ives by dropping down ropes to the bottom of the hypercenter. When Neil, the protagonist, and Ives are all back together, they agree to hide the algorithm. Neil also realizes that his mission isn't finished. He needs to go back into the battlefield once again because it was he who was the dead soldier who helped the protagonist and Ives at the bottom of the hypercenter. Neil will invert again, then run into the hypercenter, open the locked gate, and take Volkov's bullet meant for the protagonist, and that is when his story will end. The protagonist is devastated to realize this, and Neil comforts him by letting him know that they will meet again. If you enjoyed this video, you might like my series of other Tenet videos. I'll leave a link to those videos here and also in the description. As always, thanks for watching, make sure to like, comment and subscribe, and I'll see you all next time.